Hello, everyone, and welcome to the What's New with Summon and 360 and Intota Services webinar. As Scott mentioned, I'm Brent Cook. I'm the Director of Product Management for Summon, and today I will be joined by Amy Pimble, who is the Director of Product Management for Intota and 360 Services. We've got a lot of great things to share with you today. We'll take a little bit of time to talk about recent accomplishments for all our products, talk about some of the new functionality that we've recently introduced. We'll also take a look ahead, including the current August release that's in the preview environment for Summon right now, as well as take a look at what we have planned for the remainder of the year. And as I mentioned, we'll do the same thing for 360 and Intota Services. And as Scott mentioned, please be sure to submit your questions. That's one of the most important things of this webinar is our ability to have conversations with you. So via the Q&A tool, please let us know what we can do to help out and what questions we can answer for you today. So let's start off by talking a little bit about some of the recent accomplishments we've had with Summon. As I'm sure you all remember, in December, we made a big change to the Summon user interface, creating the new Summon experience. And we did a lot of stylistic updates. We improved the way that facets work in the results. We improved the organization of information in the brief results display. And we did a lot around linking and added a lot of good functionality related to that. As a reminder, this is what things look like prior to December. We had that facet pane, which served us well for years, but there was challenges around the additional functionality that was buried in the more facets pane. And a lot of users didn't even know existed, much less used. We also had a lot of functionality we'd added to that brief results, which was great, but had been added piecemeal or one by one. And in the new user interface, we've cleaned all that up. And on the left-hand side, you can see the facets. You can now interact and do all functionality, including excludes on that primary facet pane. You also have a much better organization of information throughout the brief results, including grouping of all the icons in the upper right-hand corner and overall cleaning up of the inclusion of information. Another feature that we added early this year in March, I wanted to draw attention to, and if you haven't played with this, please go out there and try it out. We've made it so that it is now optional to search the full text field within Summon. In the past, when you did a search for Summon, by default, the full text field itself was included as well. This is great because it means we've got some really deep indexing happening for these records, but it also means that you, by default, include a long tail that has some results that have the search terms that you're looking for, but may not be as relevant because they're not in the title or the author or fields like that. Instead, they're in the full text. So you now have the ability to choose whether or not to do that. This makes for a faster, more targeted result for the end user. It reduces the length of that tail with all that additional information. The response time of the query itself is a lot faster, and you still have the ability to include that if you want. So it's very easy to configure this feature. Again, if you haven't had to look at it, please take some time in the preview environment to check it out. To configure it, you're going to go into the admin console under Refine Your Search, the ability to turn on the default behavior of your search and whether or not to include those full texts is found right there at the bottom. And it says include matches in full text by default. That's by default set to off. If you want to have things perform like it did in the past, you'd better turn that to on. And then also you have the include matches in full text override feature. This is the facet value that will appear under Refine Your Searches and will allow people to include that full text search if they so choose. So as a handy guideline here, I created this slide. In past versions, I did have the graphic run on the lower right-hand corner. This has been fixed in the screen. So if you want a quick reference on how you might configure this option, for best performance, I think, in most options, you want to start off with the matches in full text turned to off by default, and you want to give people the ability to include the full text search if they'd like by turning on include matches in full text override. This shortens the long tail, increases the performance on the majority of searches that individuals perform, and it means that if they still want to search that full text to do a really thorough, deep search, they can still include it if they'd like. If you prefer things to function as they were prior to this change, that's a really easy configuration to do as well. To perform like the classic Summon search, all you do is set that include matches in full text default to on. That means all searches will include that deep search in the full text. And don't include the facet value, which is include matches in full text override. You'd set that to off. If you want to make sure that the long tail is shortened, if you don't feel that the full text option is that useful for your end user or confusing, you can set that up as well. And that's the third option I have there, which is to turn off the matches in full text off by default and to turn off the ability to add that as a facet. Now, those are just a few of the configurations that you might do using this new bit of functionality. So next I want to talk a little bit about the August release. It's currently in the preview environment. It went live last Wednesday, so we've had a little bit less than a week to take a look at it. Hopefully you've been out there to kick the tires and see what it looks like. The biggest change that you'll see is we made some changes to the quick view or preview pane. The preview pane provides more information on a single result without you leaving the search result page. The way we've included it now, we've improved the visual and placement based on user feedback and expectations from other sites. You can now hover over the thumbnail or on a mobile device, tap the thumbnail, get a quick look button. Clicking on that will then expose the quick look, which gives you the ability to browse multiple result details if you like, using that navigation at the top, and has all the information gathered there on the screen that's easy to view. This is one of the bits that we have gotten some feedback with in the preview environment. Currently, there's not a default always visible link to activate the quick look, and there's been a couple of requests for that and some good feedback around that. The development team right now is working on making that improvement. We did a little bit of usability testing on placement over the weekend, and the development team is doing the coding to add that, and I expect that that addition will be made here shortly. So thank you for the feedback on that. Please let us know what else we can do to improve this situation. We've also done some improvement based on your feedback and based on input from end users to improve how we provide access to facets and custom panels in the tablet and mobile view. In the past, custom panels were not available by default on the mobile view. You had to do a workaround, and we have an article on how to just how specifically to include that. Now custom panels are available on all various sizing for responsive design. To make it so that it's easier to find it, and to make access easier for end users, we've added the refine button there in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, you can see, and then the more button on the right-hand side. When you click on either one of those, that will expand out either side so that the end user can access that content and still use it even in a smaller screen. Another feature you'll find in the August release is the ability to add custom citation styles. This does use CSL or custom or citation style language.org, that site there, which has a GitHub repository where you can create or manage or modify various custom citation styles. You can now pull from those in order to add those to your instance of Summon. You can create styles based on existing ones that match your institution needs, or tweak one or create one from scratch if you'd like. That's all done on the CSL site. And then once you go into the admin console, you can pick from them and add them to your instance of Summon. The current standards that are already in there for Summon that we actually pull from RefWorks as our reference, those are still available. So you do have that basic functionality still available. So if you don't want to take advantage of this feature, you can just leave it as is. But as I mentioned, you now have access to a world of new citations. We're also continuing work on the integration of Sierra and Summon. And as part of that Sierra via Summon project, the big piece we're working on this year is SAML support. And that's the ability to log in using SAML authentication to access things like a My Library card page or to place requests right there in the brief results. The good news about this is that in addition to supporting both CAS and SAML for Sierra, this is the first step in additional improvements around authentication. SAML is a standard across the web. The way we've implemented it is in a standard format, so we should be able to integrate with additional authentication systems beyond Sierra. Sierra is just the first one we're testing out. We're in the process right now. Thank you to those institutions who have reached out to me to volunteer to be an early adopter for SAML. I will be reaching out to you and working with you in the next month to make sure that we can test this out and ensure that it works for all. And then once that's done, we'll begin to expand beyond that and add features associated with this authentication, and again, testing additional systems beyond Sierra. For the CRVS Summon project, we've made some improvements in the My Library Card page as well. Up to this point, you can either turn on the library card or turn it off. This actually allows you to configure separate elements. So there are a lot of different things you can show, like checked out status, fines and fees, requests, reading history. If for some reason you don't use one of these sections, like some institutions don't make the reading history available, you can now turn just that element off. You can also turn the entire library card page off if you'd like, if you prefer not to use it, but all of those controls are now in your hands in the admin console for Summon. A feature that came courtesy of NERS this year, and we've got a lot of great features in the second half of the year around the NERS voting system. For those who may not be familiar, NERS is a voting process by which Igloo and Aluna, our user bases, vote on what they want to see happen in the roadmap for the next year. Voting for that will come up soon, and I'll talk more about that later. But this is one of the great things that came out of it from last year, and that is to take a variety of records that are currently labeled as the content type web resources and improve them so that they're identified as online newspaper articles where appropriate. We saw a lot of noise, got a lot of feedback from you that some various items were showing up under web resources that looked like they were newspaper articles. We did some analysis around that, and we have identified a variety of areas where we can make those changes. So because this is a content change and not just a feature, it won't just be a flip of the switch and the improvement will happen in August. What we've done is we've done the initial analysis work. We've identified a variety of resources that should be reclassified. You'll see a list of the majority of them right here. And we've written the script in order to make these changes to the content type. And now it's a matter of processing the content itself. We've already begun the process with this content, and you'll see it improve as each one of these is updated within the Central Discovery Index or CDI, and that should continue through the second half of this year. Next, I want to talk a little bit about what we have planned for the remainder of the year. We've already completed a lot of great stuff. We've had 2 successful releases so far on February 2nd and May 4th. We're in the process, as I just mentioned, for the August 3rd release. Everything is live in the preview environment right now. If you haven't already, please go out, kick the tires on that, and give us feedback on what you like or what you'd like to see improved. And then we have the final release for the year, the Q4 release that comes out on November 2nd. The preview for that is available on October 19th, 2 weeks prior to the release. And as a reminder, for months where we don't have a quarterly release, we have maintenance releases usually. Those are the first Wednesday of all other months. We don't include a preview for that because the majority, if not all of the functionality is back-end or customer-specific improvements, so there's not really a lot to see there. There are sometimes some exceptions where we do have some visible functionality. If that is the case and it makes sense, we will have a preview in those instances and we will send out a notice of those changes. For example, if we were to find something in the user interface changes we're doing for August, that'd be something we'd follow up with quickly and make in the September maintenance release. But as of today, it doesn't look like that's going to be necessary. But just a reminder, we don't have a preview for those. And there's also no release notes because, again, it's not really customer facing. So it's fairly silent, usually just goes by smoothly without even noticing. So what do we have planned for that November release? We've got a lot going on, as I mentioned. A lot of it is NERS voting pieces, as you can see. 4 of the 5 items we have remaining have come directly from you in that voting process. That's the SAML support for CRVS Summon is one, improved display of coverage dates for e-journals, working on linking and improving open access linking and the brief results, adding collection discovery for Summon over Alma, working on a plan and a design for how to better integrate with learning management systems using LTI, and then of course, accessibility, which is something we always work on. And I'll go into some more details about that in just a moment. So let's start off talking about some of the user interface changes that we've made. As I mentioned already, the quick view that you can see out there in preview right now, and then some of the other things that we have planned for later in the year. One thing we have planned for November is taking a look at advanced search and what changes we can make in that area. So one of the remaining sections of the user interface that we haven't revised since we made the changes in December, we're going to improve how people access that. In early user testing that we did with that, we found that for the majority of users, the advanced search page itself is a little overwhelming. But we know that for power users, having that full range of functionality on the advanced search page is critical. So what we've done is we've created, or what we plan to do is create an intermediary screen where someone can click on that options link that's in the search bar now, and that will expose a little bit of an overlay that has a brief or smaller set of the main components used in the advanced search tool so that the majority of users can get in there, do that advanced configuration, and continue on with their search. If you're a power user and you really want to have everything on one screen, you can still access an advanced search page using the link in the lower right-hand corner there. Again, this is a design at this point. Things may change between now and November as we go through testing, but this is the plan as of today. We'll also be exposing collection discovery for some of our Alma customers. For those customers who have Alma, collection discovery is a great way to manage a collection, do a visual presentation of that information, and make it easier for users to browse those categories and find the information that they want. We will be doing this in conjunction with Alma. It will be released around the November timeframe. The actual release date may be slightly outside of the specific November release date, though, as we coordinate across platforms, but this should be available by the end of the year. And as mentioned earlier, one of the things that we're working on is LTI support for Summon. We're initially doing the design and plan work for that. The team is actually working on the current sprint. This refers to the ability for Summon to integrate into a variety of learning management systems, including things like Canvas. LTI, or Learning Tools Interoperability, is a standard out there for integrating with things like this. For NERS and for 2022, we've created space to do the initial design and plan for this. Depending on what the design looks like and the size of the effort, we may be able to deliver that functionality before the end of the year, but it will be based on what we find out during the initial design phase. If for some reason it is not something we can fit in 2022 for implementation, we will do a fast follow with that in 2023. As I mentioned, we're working on improving online newspapers and articles. We've also done a lot to improve how we link to full text. Last year, we added the ability to show all links, including open URL links. We're now working on open access linking and how to improve that, improving details on journal coverage, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the improvements we've done around quick links. So for open access linking, one of the challenges that we have right now with open access content is that if you do not have that particular open access collection that the result is coming from, the link for the open access content may not appear in your brief results in Summon. So things may be identified as open access, but the user may not have access to a link that takes them directly to that open access option for that piece of content. With this feature, we will be making an improvement, basically creating a link to the open access content via the open access icon. You look right there on the right-hand side, it's the open access word with a padlock next to it. We'll make it so that that is a link so that if anybody wants to get access to that open access content, you can do it directly from there. You can turn this on or off for your institution. The other great thing about placing the link there instead of ensuring that it is collected in the list of links in the brief result is that it keeps the focus that you want in the main links on your subscribed content if you want there, but it ensures that users know or can find an open access link if that's the route they want to go. As I mentioned earlier, we're also looking into showing coverage dates with links for title level eJournal results in the brief result for summons so that you can easily get in there and see what's available at your institution and access it quickly and easily. And as I mentioned before, we've done a lot of work with Quicklinks, which is part of our data excellence program for 2022. For those who may not be familiar with Quicklinks, we are working directly with publishers for this program so that we can get a direct link to either an HTML or PDF version of full text. As we all know, the end user really wants to get to that content and see the information that they're searching for. This is a way to make that experience better. We have 17 providers right now supported with over 1.5 billion records in this program. As you can see on the right-hand side, there's a brief list of who is currently participating. We have additional providers planned to be added throughout 2022, and this list should continue to grow. If you are interested in finding out more, you can just visit the link there on the screen. As Scott mentioned earlier, we'll post that in the chat here in a little bit so you can access it, and we'll make the PowerPoint available after this webinar so you can easily access this and you don't have to try to write down that huge long URL. But again, this is Quicklinks, and it's hopefully making it easier for your patrons to find the content they want quickly and with a single click. And as I mentioned before, that was part of a larger data excellence program overall. It's something we're taking a look at. We know it's areas that we can improve on, particularly around how quickly we process various content. We've been working on enhanced performance and improved matching for CDI rights processing overall, and taking a look at how we can improve the merged record as part of the data excellence program. And what this program is, it's addressing the intersection between content, technology, and users so that we can have a data-driven cross-company strategy for providing you with the best possible data for your end users and the most effective overall program. This will make for stronger services, higher user satisfaction, and better outcomes overall. And then the last thing I want to touch on before I hand it over to Amy is to talk some about accessibility and analytics. These are two features. They're not even more features. They're more concepts or parts of the overall product. These are things we work on at all times. I want to highlight accessibility for a moment. All of the changes to the user interface that we've made recently, we do accessibility testing internally. We do user testing to make sure that what we have out there will be useful for people as they access this information using whatever methods they need out in the wild. But even with that, we know that we can miss things, or that things that we test for may be different than what happens out in the real world. So we'll also be following up with our normal testing that we do for accessibility with a third-party audit to make sure that all of our various changes are good and working as expected for all users. And if we identify anything, or anything comes in, any feedback that we get from you or your end users on how we can improve accessibility, those are the kind of things that we address in those maintenance releases, because we want to make sure that everyone has access to the information that they want and that those issues are resolved quickly and efficiently. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Amy to talk a little bit about 360 and Intota services.
Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I want to take a few minutes to talk about the recap of where we are for the 360 Intota services. You know, it's the middle of the year, a good time to take stock of where we've been and where we're heading in the immediate future. And afterwards, we will get to your questions. I saw some come through in the Q&A. Next, please. So we've been doing a lot of work around 3 primary themes this year. Our roadmap is really all about community requests. That includes our very first NERS project that we worked on for the last release, along with a lot of other ideas that came through the ideas exchange that weren't necessarily officially voted upon, but which we took cues from and tackled. We've also done a lot of work to bolster our technical infrastructure and capabilities and keep all of your data and your systems safe and secure. And we've also, as always, spent a lot of time on what I'm calling continuous support, and that includes any issues that you report that we need to triage and tackle, and ongoing maintenance projects like doing index enhanced direct linking refinements. That would be contained in that category as well. Next. Our quarter releases are halfway done, February 23rd, and just a month ago, June 17th, we did the database migration as well as the Q2 release. We combined both of those activities to alleviate downtime. Which means we have kind of a condensed timeline for getting to our Q3 release, which is coming out on August 3rd, the same day as Summon, and then the final one will be November 2nd. Next. To recap what projects we've done based on your input in the first half of 2022, We released the ability to filter eJournal portal autocomplete suggestions and limit those autocomplete suggestions to the titles that you have in your library profile instead of the entire universe of the knowledge base. Hopefully that you saw an end to no result searches or patron confusion about why something was suggested but then actually could not be accessed. We also did, as I said, our first NERS project, and a small fix for that will be going out with a Q3 release to make one of the linking parameters work better. But the thrust of that change was to rank titles that had the search string in the main title over titles that had the search string in only the alternate titles. Another one project that we gleaned from the ideas exchange was the ability to show the MARC record availability percentage at the database level. That gives you, kind of it gives you a quick reference, a quick way to determine the number of MARC records that have been normalized for a particular database, and have what we call an authorized record behind it in our KB. And another project just released was the ability to bulk upload a database order list to 360 link. If you have hundreds and hundreds of databases in your profile, then you know what a pain it can be to rearrange them in your preferred prioritized list. So this project allows you to do it in a spreadsheet compatible software program and then upload it directly into the administrative console. And again, these are all things that you guys requested, so please do know that we're paying attention, and we love the feedback and the ideas. Next, please. Infrastructure in 2022 has been particularly important. We did a major database management software migration on June 17th. As you know, it touched all of our applications, both our internal tools and your tools, public-facing, client-facing, and there's some residual work that came out of that we've primarily finished, but there might be some outlying things that we still need to attend to. We also have a pending migration for Intota assessment, switch platforms to Oracle Analytics Server. There is a project happening beginning this year to migrate, for security reasons, to migrate from the FTP protocol to MSP. And that is going to, from the 360 Intota services, that's going to affect 360 MARC updates clients and how you access your records. So it's a more secure layer in which to exchange data. But again, there's going to be more information on that coming up. And of course, we always have ongoing tools maintenance, and everything from Tomcat to jQuery to all of the little tools that you may not necessarily know are under the hood, and even I don't know are under the hood, but that have to be tended to and cared for. Next, please. And for some of the continuous support, the ongoing maintenance we're doing in response to reports that we get from you. I mentioned the IEDL refinements that we did last release. We've also put a lot of work into handling sushi harvesting, both errors that get reported as well as validation and exposing those errors to you in a reasonable human readable form. We continue to address accessibility issues, and we have an ongoing review with our ProQuest user experience team. They continually check our systems, and we incorporate, in particular, level A requirements as much as possible. And one other thing that I wanted to mention is that, of course, we do ongoing linker syntax changes in order to increase linking accuracy. And that's done by a wholly separate team. And one thing that we have begun to readdress is that in the Knowledge Center, there's an answer that at one point had the monthly changes that were made to linker syntaxes that had not been updated in a while. So beginning August 1st, that article will once again have the most recent linker syntax updates, if that's something that you're interested in keeping track of. Next, please. All right, so our August release is, because of what I said earlier was the condensed maintenance, or I'm sorry, the condensed timeline for it. You know, we just have a smaller amount of time between the releases right now. And also because we're doing some of the follow-up work to the database software migration and all the fallout from that. It's going to primarily be a maintenance release, and full release notes will be coming out obviously prior to the August 3rd. Next, please. But I'd like to introduce one really important project that was on the roadmap, excuse me, and for which we have a really solid phase 1 project to let you play with. Obviously, our intended goal is to implement the recommended practices for KBART automation. This will allow us to expand our auto holding support beyond eBook Central. As many of you know, it's an incredible time saver to have that overnight feed. But by implementing support for the KBART format, we can now begin working with other providers who have done similar projects for systems such as SFX and ALMA. It's a pretty big undertaking, and we really need to kind of break it into chunks. Next, please. And the first chunk, or the first phase, is going to be the ability to simply upload KBART formatted files. That's not something that we've been able to support from the 360 or Intota side to this point. We've always depended on our own ODD format. But now you have the option within that same workspace to specify that a particular file is KBART formatted. So if you're able to receive KBART formatted files from a provider, then you can absolutely use this new feature to upload those and set your holdings. Again, this is a first step in the automation of the holdings. That's fine, Brett. You can go to the next. So with that first step coming with on August 3rd, where we're moving on from there is to vet with you that the upload is working as it should. We need to see if there's any idiosyncrasies that we need to address with particular providers, you know, data accuracy, things like that. I should say that phase 1 is limited to 360 right now, simply because of the timeline, but we do need to integrate it into Intota. We will be expanding the uploading of KBART formatted files to library-specific databases as well. And then, you know, kind of on a different track, we need to begin planning for automation. What does that look like? We need to have documentation ready for providers who approach us and who we want to approach. We need to get the sufficient infrastructure in place. So when they, you know, provide us a weekly or monthly or whatever frequency feed or of files, where are they going to put that? You know, I mentioned we're moving from FTP support to MFT, so we need to have those spaces ready for providers to give us the data. And of course, my team will be liaising with provider outreach in order to kind of get all the ducks in a row, make sure testing goes well, and make it a smooth, replicatable process for everyone that we coordinate with. So that's what we're looking at for August 3rd and a little beyond. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Brent.
Thanks, Amy. And what I'd like to do next is talk a little bit about community engagement. I've referenced it a few times as I've gone through the presentation so far, but it's really important because it's how you help shape the product. I, as a product manager, certainly appreciate all the input and attention that you give to the product. A great way to have a specific direct impact to the functionality is the idea exchange. Please add your ideas to the idea exchange. You can go out there and add things for 360 and Intota and Summon. Any of those ideas can be added to the idea exchange under the Summon umbrella. There's a subcategory for 360 services and things like that. And if for some reason you're out there adding something and you're unsure of what category to put it in, don't worry about that. I just get your idea out there. Amy and I check things on a regular basis. And if it looks like something should be classified a little differently, we'll do that. And it'll definitely get reviewed. And of course, go out there and use your votes on the idea exchange, because that helps us determine what's important there and what we should be bringing into the product. And the ideas will be used for the 2022 NERS voting for what's going to happen in 2023. We'll be pulling those ideas shortly. So get out there and get your ideas added so that you can make sure that that's part of the NERS voting as well. I also want to shine a light on some upcoming events that we have that might be of interest to you. We have a general webinar coming up on July 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern, which is called Open Systems in the Age of Library Services Platform. It's a conversation with Marshall Breeding. Hopefully you can make that. Registration, we'll make sure that the links are available for you to register for that so you can take advantage. And even if you're not going to be around, maybe you're on vacation or it's just not a good time for you to attend that webinar, it's still a good idea to register. It helps us understand what you're interested in from a content standpoint, and it makes sure that after the fact, you'll get a link to the recording so you can watch it at your convenience. We also plan to do some more customer sessions for Summon in 2022. We're scheduling that right now. I recently participated in one about analytics about a month or so ago, and it was great to hear directly from you, the customer, about your experiences and what you do with analytics, and to have a conversation about how we can improve it. So look forward to more coming from that program. And then finally, I want to announce Igloo, which is coming up September 12th through 15th. It's the annual conference. There's a Developers Day. There's a Knowledge Day. I'm excited because I'll be able to be there in person. Hopefully you'll be there in person too, so I can see you and shake your hand if appropriate in our COVID world. It'll just be nice to be able to be there, talk with folks and get your feedback on the products and talk about what we can do to improve in the future. And thanks to everybody for taking some time today out of your day to attend the webinar and ask questions and to participate. I know I say this a lot, but it's something that I sincerely mean and I truly appreciate. I really appreciate your attention to detail and your input for the product. Summon is the way that it is today directly because of your impact and your voice. So please keep that information coming via the idea exchange, via NERS voting, or direct outreach to me or Amy. We always love to hear from you and do our best to improve the product based on your feedback. So thank you so much for taking time today, and thank you for your input. Amy?
I would echo what Brenna said. Thanks for your time. We appreciate that you want to attend these and hear what we have to say. I hope that if you heard nothing else from me today, it's that your input is incredibly valuable, and we appreciate it, and we hope to continue along this path based on your ideas and the idea exchange and feedback that you give us. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Brent and Amy, and thank you very much for attending today. That concludes today's session. We'll get the slides and the recording out to you as soon as I can. Thanks. Bye-bye.